In the sweltering heat of 1950s Florida, where the humid air clings to your skin like a bad dream, a boy named Bernard Eugene Giles entered the world on April 9, 1953, Titusville, a quiet town nestled near the Space Coast. Seemed like the perfect place for a child to grow up. Endless beaches, rocket launches piercing the sky, and a sense of small-town safety. But beneath that facade, something dark was stirring in young Bernard. From an early age, he felt disconnected, like an outsider watching the world through a cracked window. His family life appeared normal on the surface. A father who worked hard, a mother who kept the home, and siblings who played in the yard. Yet Bernard harbored secrets, whispers in his mind that grew louder with each passing year. As a child, Bernard was quiet, almost unnaturally so. Neighbors recalled him as the boy who rarely smiled, who wandered the woods alone for hours. He wasn't the type to join in games or make friends easily. Instead, he found solace in solitude, observing animals in the wild, watching them hunt, struggle, and die. It started innocently enough, catching frogs by the creek, pinning butterflies to boards. But soon his curiosities twisted. He began experimenting, dissecting small creatures not out of scientific interest, but to feel the rush of power over life and death. His parents dismissed it as boyish mischief, but deep down Bernard knew it was more. These acts were rehearsals, tiny sparks igniting a fire that would one day consume everything in its path. By his teenage years, the darkness had deepened. Bernard dropped out of school, drifting through odd jobs, mechanic work, construction, anything to fill the void. But the void only grew. He started having fantasies, vivid and violent, about control, domination, and the thrill of the forbidden. Women, in particular, became the focus of his obsessions. He would drive aimlessly along the highways, eyes scanning the roadsides for hitchhikers, his mind racing with scenarios too horrific to voice. Titusville in the early 1970s was a place of transition, with the Apollo program winding down and economic uncertainty looming. People were hitchhiking more, trusting strangers in a way that now seems naive. Bernard saw opportunity in that trust, a vulnerability he could exploit. The first urges hit him like a storm, uncontrollable, electrifying. One fateful day in 1973, at just 20 years old, Bernard's fantasies crossed into reality. He had been cruising the back roads, the radio humming softly, when he spotted her, a young woman thumbing for a ride. Her name was Nancy Jerry, 18, full of life and dreams. Heading home after a day out, Bernard pulled over, his face a mask of friendliness. "Need a lift?" he asked, his voice steady, betraying nothing. She climbed in, grateful for the help. He veered off the main road, into the dense orange groves where the trees swallowed the light. There, in the isolation, the monster emerged. What happened next would haunt Titusville forever. Bernard overpowered Nancy, his hands like vices, dragging her deeper into the woods. The struggle was brief but brutal, her cries lost in the rustling leaves. He raped her, the act fueling his twisted need for dominance. Then, in a cold, calculated moment, he ended her life, strangling her until the light faded from her eyes. He left her body hidden among the underbrush, covered hastily with branches, as if she were just another discarded experiment from his childhood. Driving away, Bernard felt no remorse, only a fleeting high, a satisfaction that would soon crave more. This wasn't just a murder. It was the birth of a serial predator. Word spread quickly in the small town. Nancy was missing. Posters went up, searches combed the groves, but days turned to weeks with no sign. Bernard went back to his routine, blending in seamlessly. He even got married around this time, to a woman who saw only the charming side he presented. They started a family, but the facade was cracking. The kill had awakened something insatiable. Less than a month later, the urges returned, stronger than before. Another drive, another hitchhiker, Paula Hamrick, 22, a mother of two, just trying to get home. Bernard's pattern was forming. Pick them up, isolate them, unleash the horror. Paula's fate mirrored Nancy's. The friendly offer, the detour into seclusion, the violation and strangulation. He dumped her body in a canal, watching it sink into the murky water, his heart pounding not with guilt but excitement. Titusville was now gripped by fear. Whispers of a killer on the loose circulated in diners and churches. Women stopped hitchhiking alone. Parents warned their daughters. But Bernard was invisible, a wolf in sheep's clothing living among them. His double life intensified the terror. He was the neighbor, the coworker, the everyman hiding an abyss of evil. As the bodies piled up in his mind, Bernard's confidence grew. He targeted vulnerable women, runaways, hitchhikers, those society overlooked. The third victim, Carolyn Bennett, 18, vanished in similar fashion, picked up, assaulted, murdered, her remains left in the woods like forgotten trash. The police were baffled. No connections, no witnesses. Bernard reveled in the chaos he created, the power of being the unseen monster. But with each kill, the risk escalated. He was spiraling, the line between his normal life and his dark urges blurring into one nightmare. The year 1973 was drawing to a close. But for Bernard Giles, the killing spree was just accelerating. With 3 bodies already hidden in the shadowed groves and canals of Brevard County, Florida, he felt invincible, a shadow slipping through the cracks of society. His days were spent in mundane normalcy, working as an electrician, coming home to his wife and young child, exchanging pleasantries with neighbors. But at night the demons whispered louder, urging him toward the highways where desperate souls sought rides. The police were piecing together clues, but the connections were thin. Hitchhiking deaths were dismissed as tragic accidents or runaways gone wrong. Bernard thrived on this blindness, his confidence swelling like a storm cloud over the humid landscape. Sharon Weimer, 14, became his next victim in late December. She was young, innocent, with a whole life ahead, perhaps dreaming of holidays and family gatherings. Bernard spotted her on the roadside, her thumb out, trusting the world a little too much. He pulled over in his unassuming car, offering a smile that hid the abyss within. The drive started innocently, but soon veered into isolation. In the dense woods, away from prying eyes, he unleashed his fury, the assault, the strangulation, the disposal. Sharon's body was left in a shallow ditch, covered by palmetto leaves, as if nature itself conspired to hide his sins. Back home, Bernard washed the dirt from his hands, kissed his wife goodnight, and slept soundly, the thrill lingering like a drug in his veins. The new year brought no resolution, only more horror. January 1974 saw Krista Melton, 14, fall into Bernard's trap. Another hitchhiker, another friendly face masking evil intent. Krista was vibrant, full of teenage energy, but her journey ended in the same brutal ritual: rape, murder, abandonment in the wilderness. By now the pattern was clear to Bernard. Target the vulnerable, strike quickly, vanish without a trace. The media began to murmur about a possible serial killer. Headlines in local papers stirring unease. Mystery murders plague Space Coast, they read. But Bernard clipped them secretly, savoring the fear he instilled. His family life provided the perfect alibi. Who would suspect the devoted father? As the bodies mounted to 5, Bernard's psyche fractured further. In rare moments of reflection, he pondered his origins, the childhood tortures of animals escalating to human prey. Psychologists later would label it as a classic escalation, but to Bernard it was destiny, a dark calling he couldn't resist. The killings weren't just acts of violence, they were rituals of power, each one more intoxicating than the last. Yet cracks appeared. He grew reckless, driving the same routes, risking exposure. Whispers in Titusville turned to outright panic. Women armed themselves. Hitchhiking vanished overnight. Bernard felt the noose tightening, but the urges overpowered caution. Fate intervened in an unexpected way. In mid-1974, Bernard was arrested not for the murders, but for an unrelated assault. While in custody, the walls closed in. Detectives, piecing together the hitchhiker vanishings, confronted him with evidence: tire tracks, witness sketches, the proximity of the bodies. At first he denied everything, his face a stone mask. But the pressure built, and in a chilling confession, Bernard cracked. He detailed each kill with cold precision, the pics, the assaults, the final breaths. It was like a switch flipped, he later told Piers Morgan in that infamous interview, his voice devoid of emotion, eyes staring into the void. The confession sent shockwaves through Florida. The everyman was a monster. The trial was a spectacle of horror. Prosecutors painted Bernard as the embodiment of evil, a predator who preyed on the innocent. Victims' families wept in the courtroom, their testimonies ripping open old wounds. Bernard, shackled and expressionless, pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty, receiving multiple life sentences without parole. Locked away in Florida State Prison, he became a case study in depravity. But even behind bars, the darkness lingered. In his cell, he reflected on the rush, the control that defined his life. Piers Morgan's interview years later peeled back layers. revealing a man who admitted his crimes but offered no true remorse, only clinical detachment. Morgan pressed him. What made you do it? Bernard's responses were haunting. Childhood isolation, fantasies that spiraled out of control, a void that only violence could fill. He described the murders as inevitable, like a force beyond his will. Viewers watching the interview felt chills. Here was a killer who didn't rage or deny, but calmly dissected his own monstrosity. It humanized the horror in the worst way, showing that evil could wear a familiar face. Florida's communities began to heal, but scars remained. Memorials for the victims dotted the landscapes where they fell. Yet Bernard's story didn't end with conviction. In prison, he became introspective, writing letters, pondering redemption. But doubts lingered. Was it genuine or another manipulation? The interview with Morgan exposed this duality. A serial killer and rapist who confessed freely, yet whose eyes betrayed no soul. As the years passed, Bernard aged in his cell, a relic of 1970s terror. His case warned of hidden dangers, the predators blending into everyday life. The nightmare of Titusville faded, but the echoes of those 5 lost lives resonated, a grim reminder in the annals of true crime. Decades after his crimes, Bernard Giles sat across from Piers Morgan in a stark prison room, the air thick with unspoken dread. The 2010 interview, aired on ITV, peeled back the layers of a killer's mind, revealing a chilling detachment that sent shivers down spines worldwide. Morgan, known for his probing style, dove straight in. Why did you kill those girls? Bernard's response was ice cold, no rage, no tears, just a flat recounting of urges that built up like pressure. He described the murders as addictive highs, each one a temporary release from an inner void. Viewers watched in horror as he mimicked the strangulations, his hands gesturing calmly, as if discussing the weather. Bernard opened up about his twisted logic. The victims were opportunities, hitchhikers in the wrong place at the wrong time. He claimed no hatred, just a compulsion rooted in childhood fantasies. It started with animals, he admitted, detailing how torturing pets evolved into human prey. Morgan pressed on remorse. Do you feel sorry? Bernard paused, his eyes distant. I regret the pain I caused families, he said, but it rang hollow like a scripted line. The interview exposed his narcissism. He enjoyed the notoriety, the power of confession. Clips went viral, fueling true crime podcasts and documentaries. But for survivors, it reopened wounds. Behind the calm facade, Bernard hinted at darker truths. He spoke of blackouts during kills, moments where something else took over. Psychologists analyzing the tape labeled him a classic. Psychopath, high intelligence, zero empathy, a master manipulator. Morgan challenged him on the rapes. Was it about sex or control? Bernard smirked faintly. Both, he replied, describing the thrill of dominance. The conversation turned to his family, how he hid his double life, playing the loving husband while bodies rotted in groves. They never suspected, he said proudly, a revelation that amplified the terror of hidden evil. As the interview unfolded, Bernard's lack of emotion became the real horror. No breakdowns, no pleas for forgiveness, just clinical analysis. Morgan asked about prevention. What could have stopped you? Bernard shrugged. Nothing. It was inevitable. This fatalism chilled audiences, suggesting killers like him are wired differently, untouchable by society. The segment ended with Bernard staring into the camera. A subtle warning. Monsters walk among us, blending in until they strike. Post-interview, Bernard faded into obscurity, serving life in prison. But his words lingered, inspiring debates on nature, nurture. True crime enthusiasts dissected every frame, searching for clues to his soul, or lack thereof. Families of victims boycotted the show, calling it exploitative, while others saw it as a cautionary tale. In Titusville, ghosts of 1973 haunted the roads, where hitchhiking signs now warn of dangers. Bernard's story became legend, a blueprint for serial killer profiles and FBI files. Bernard Giles's legacy lingers like a fog over Florida's forgotten roads, a testament to unchecked evil. Decades in prison haven't dimmed his infamy. True crime aficionados dissect his case on forums and podcasts, debating if he was born monstrous or molded by neglect. Titusville, once a beacon of space-age dreams, now bears invisible stains. Locals avoid certain groves at night, whispering of ghosts hitchhiking in the mist. Victims' memorials stand as silent sentinels, Flowers wilting under relentless sun, reminders that 5 lives were snuffed for one man's twisted pleasure. In the broader true crime world, Giles exemplifies the everyman killer, charming, employed familial, shattering illusions of safety. His confessions inspired profiling techniques. FBI agents study his detachment, training to spot similar voids in suspects. Books and documentaries retell his spree, but none capture the raw chill of his Morgan interview, where he dissected murders like autopsy notes. "I felt nothing," he said, words that echo in nightmares, fueling fears that predators hide in plain sight. Survivors and families endure the deepest scars. Nancy's sister speaks at vigils, her voice cracking. "He stole futures." Paula's children grew up fatherless, haunted by headlines. Advocacy groups arose from the ashes, pushing anti-hitchhiking laws and women's safety programs. Yet Giles lives on, aging in his cell, occasionally granting interviews that stir controversy. Is he reformed? Doubts persist. His eyes, even in photos, hold that predatory gleam. As true crime evolves, Giles's story warns of digital dangers, online predators, mimicking his methods. Social media buzzes with theories. Was there a 6th victim? Hidden accomplices? Conspiracy threads thrive on Reddit, blending fact with fiction, keeping the horror alive. In the end, Bernard Giles embodies pure horror, a man who killed not for motive, but impulse. His spree ended, but the nightmare persists. In empty highways, locked doors, distrustful glances. Florida's sunsets now carry a blood-tinged hue, eternal shadows of innocence lost. As Morgan concluded, some evils defy understanding. Giles remains caged, but his darkness seeps out, a chilling reminder that monsters are real and they look just like us.